Good morning, hello and welcome. My name is Bhuvan. This is the Indian Express Explain class. Let's get started. I have three topics for you. First one is to do with the revival, the rejuvenation of the flightless bird, the extinct bird dodo. Okay, Indian Express Explained has this news prominently. So we'll first go ahead and understand the article in toto, okay, in totality. And then I have a surprise for you, and say many of you may not be aware of this, that a very close cousin of the dodo is found in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, among other places. Okay, and that particular bird is going to be critical in this attempted revival of the flightless bird dodo. Okay, so stand by. We'll discuss that bird too. Then number two, we'll take a look at a recent Supreme Court judgment and the doctrine of the group of companies. Okay, it's a very simple doctrine, but something that you ought to be aware of from the prelims perspective more importantly. Okay, and number three is to do with the Essequibo dispute. So that has been in the news in Southern America. Okay, so we'll go ahead and understand the dispute first. Obviously, it's well known by now. We have discussed it in detail in previous classes. But in this class, we'll take it a step forward and see where does India's interests lie with regards to this dispute. What does India stand to gain or lose insofar as the Guyana's dispute with Venezuela over the Essequibo region is concerned. Okay, so that's the three agendas that we have today. Let's get started. Kalyani Bulbul Coder SMD Nand Kishore. Good morning, guys. Thank you so much for joining. And do remember, if you have any particular questions, you'll reach out to me on my Instagram channel. Meanwhile, you'll find the entire PDF of this lecture uploaded on my Telegram channel. Right. Let's look at this article now, guys. Not so dead after all, plan to revive the long lost dodo. Okay. So what we know so far. So dodo is one of those birds that was endemic to Mauritius in the Indian Ocean. Right. Now, it went extinct. Why did it go extinct? That must be the first question that you should have. So, up until a certain time, it was thriving in the islands of Mauritius. But what you find is that then came the Dutch, and along with them being brought their pets and their animals, and they see other paraphernalia. Okay, and this is what the article tells me also. The tubby flightless bird disappeared from Mauritius around 80 years after Dutch sailors first set foot in 1598. So, they started hunting, which means hunting was reason number one. And then they brought in these other species. So you can classify them as, say, invasive species. So these are the primary two reasons why my dodo went extinct. Okay. And so thus you find that this is one of the first examples, one of the most prominent examples of a species extinction due to, say, anthropological intervention. Right. Now, what is the plan? So the plan is that first, to bring back the dodo, they are going to require the complete genetic information of the dodo. The entire genetic sequence of the dodo has been mapped out by the researchers, by the scientists. Now, what they have done? They have also compared it to the genome of two important species that you need to know of. The Rodriguez solitaire. Okay. This is species number one, bird number one. And number two is the bird Nicobar pigeon. Okay. Now what you need to do first, that when the scientists were going ahead and studying the dodo, right? So the first thing they needed to classify the dodo was it an ostrich? Like what was it most closely related to? Was it an ostrich or a pigeon or an owl or whatever, right? And then they finally zeroed in that a pigeon is closest to a dodo. And thus you find that the Nicobar pigeon, right? The Nicobar pigeon, which is again found in Andaman Nicobar, we'll go ahead and study about it also. This is going to be the particular species through which they will go ahead to go and say compare the genome sequencing of the dodo, right? So thus they are going to go ahead and what they are going to do? The primordial germ cells, they will be studied, the embryonic precursors of a species, sperm and egg. So another term that you need to be aware of, the PGC, the primordial germ cells. Primordial means what? You know it by now, right? Before prehistoric. So you have these cells that form, say, the unit figure, the unit of a sperm or an egg. So this is going to be studied, right? And they are going to go ahead and use a chicken and a rooster and thus hope that finally the product that comes out is a dodo. But then there is a problem. And what is the problem? The problem is that you might have just a dodo-esque creature, right? It may not be exactly like the dodo it was. Now, why is that critical? Because you have to realize that the dodo up until a certain time lived in Mauritius and thrived in Mauritius. But then it couldn't respond to, say, the invasive species that came in because of the Dutch bringing them along with them. So thus you find, to go ahead and not replicate the same problem that we identified in the previous slide, right? The hunting is obviously taken care of. This is not going to happen now. But then the invasive species has to be taken care of. And thus you find that the Mauritius government is also looking to go ahead and control all of your invasive other species that you can think of, say rats, feral cats, pigs, dogs, monkeys, mongoose, crows, right? They are going to be either be completely rehabilitated or controlled. Their population will be controlled to the extent that it does not threaten the new dodo that the scientists are planning, right? Now, what is the whole point of this? So, few things that you need to know of, okay? The article mentions that the bird's large beak indicates it consumed large seeded fruits. So, thus, you might be correct in your assumption or your inference that large beaks is essentially to do with the large fruits or large seeds, right? So, just a thing that you should know of, that birds that have small beaks are essentially looking at smaller seeds. And so thus they will be involved in the seed dispersal of the smaller fruits or the plants that you might know of, right? So this is one correlation that the article also communicates to us. And more importantly, what you figure out is that because of this method, in the future, they are looking at going ahead and applying the same method to go ahead and say, conserve, protect, bring in number, the brink species, the critically endangered species, for example, right? So your vultures, for example, may find an increase in number, right? Now, more importantly, one thing that you need to be aware of is that its distribution, right? The distribution of my Rodriguez solitaire and Nicobar pigeon is important. So let's go ahead and understand the Nicobar pigeon, the closest relative to the dodo. Charu, good morning, how are you? Guys, if you're liking the discussion, if you're understanding the discussion, all I can request you is quickly just leave me a like. It will give me a good boost to my confidence and it encourages me of sorts, okay? So do consider leaving me a like. Meanwhile, look at this article. Nicobar pigeon, the closest relative of the dodo. Found on obviously the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, the Indonesian archipelago, and the Solomons and the Palau, which means you're looking at the Micronesia, Polynesia area, right? One more thing that you need to be aware of, say from the Micronesia, Polynesia, Melanesia, you are supposed to know at least the basic differences. So for example, here is one thing off the top of my head, that when you go from say north to south, so what is the arrangement like? Let's go ahead and quickly look at that first. Then we'll look at the facts of the bird. Okay. So at the top, very top, you have your Micronesia. Correct? Yes or no, my friends? Is Micronesia my topmost? Guys, those who are watching me live, just let me know very quickly. The north to south orientation, let's go ahead and quickly revise. It's not just enough to know about the bird, we should also know the geography of the place. Right? Then I have, say, just below that, I have my Melanesia. Right? And then I have my Australasia. And to the southwest of this, southeast of this, in fact, I have my Polynesia. Yes or no? Right? So these sub-regions also ought to be known by you. Okay? It's not just enough to know about the bird or say news. You are supposed to go ahead and interpret news and say study all about it, all around it also. Okay? So you're looking at the distribution of the Nicobar pigeons in these particular areas. Now it is the only living cousin of the extinct bird like the dodo and the Rodriguez solitaire of Madagascar. Okay? So they are extinct. So you're looking at this being the last hope. And you find that this is nearly threatened. This is also NT in my IUCN red list. Okay. Why the reasons? Same again, invasive species. Okay. It is also used as a pet which is why it finds immense value because of its colorful feathers. You can figure out why it is preferred as by the bird smugglers too, right? So this is the news that I have for you. The last cousin of the dodo is being found right in our own backyard in Andaman and Nicobar Islands, and that is going to be of prime importance to us insofar as the revival of the dodo is concerned. Okay, right? Chalo, let's go ahead and answer this question then. Right? To the east of Micronesia lies Polynesia. To the south of Micronesia lies Melanesia. To the west of Micronesia lies Australasia. You will identify the incorrect options for me, please. Okay, go ahead, do that. A minor bit of mapping for you. And you will also answer this question for me. How many of the above are critically endangered according to the IUCN Red List? Okay, red-headed vulture, white-rumped vulture, Indian vulture, slender-billed vulture. Okay, so you must have all heard of the problem of diclofenac when it comes to vultures in India, and how the government has gone ahead and taken huge steps and measures to make sure that this is regulated so that my vultures are conserved, they are protected, that they don't go extinct, right? Which is why vultures become a very key area of importance insofar as birds in India is concerned. Obviously, you have the other critically endangered birds, say the bears, pochard, all of those other birds that you ought to know of, at least the critically endangered. But the vultures should be of special significance and importance to you. So go ahead, let me know which of these are critically endangered. We will discuss the right answers in tomorrow's class. Okay, before I go very forward, my friends, for those of you who are going to be writing next year's examination, one thing that I can advise you is, please focus on question solving, okay? It's not just enough to go ahead and read books and mug up facts. You need to be aware of how to solve questions, okay? You need to be aware of your mistakes so that you don't make them on the 26th of May 2024. And in that direction, may I suggest go ahead and take a look at StudyIQ's comprehensive test series, by the way. Yes, the 6th batch now beginning very soon, and it is being offered at this competitive price. If you use the code BALIVE, right, well, you get another discount over and above this, right? So I encourage you, please do consider, because what you eventually need to require is that you should have knowledge level as well as question solving at a similar level before you are going to go ahead and appear for the examinations. Do not compromise on the question solving. It will be detrimental to your complete attempt. Okay. Right, let's look at this. Arbitration Pact, Supreme Court upholds Group of Companies Doctrine. What is the Group of Companies Doctrine? Sonu, good morning. It shouldn't be good night. Subah ho gayi. Chaliye dekhte. The Supreme Court of India, it has upheld the validity of the Group of Companies Doctrine in an Indian arbitration jurisprudence. What has happened is, you have two companies, okay? Company A versus Company B. The companies are not important for us to know. But what you need to know is that they had an agreement, then there was the breach of the agreement, and then Company A goes and files an arbitration case, okay? And then you find that in their application, they just don't list B, but they also list the sister companies of B, say B1, B2. Thus now B goes and appeals that particular judgment saying, well, my agreement was with them, how come they are getting sued? Right? So this is the doctrine. The Group of Companies Doctrine tells me that in an arbitration agreement entered into by one company in a group of companies can, under circumstances, also bind other non-signatory companies. Which means what? That because B went ahead and signed a particular agreement with A, which means in certain cases, unless specified otherwise, B1 and B2, even though they have not signed the particular document, they are very much part of that deal. They are very much part of that agreement. That is the Group of Companies Doctrine, which means one thing you need to know of, it is an inclusionary doctrine, right? It goes ahead and talks about including those companies of your group that may not be directly involved in a deal, but are under the definition of a group, which means what? They have common resources, common personnel, common objectives, common goals, even though they are functioning in, say, different subsectors. They are part of that particular group, which means the particular, say, agreement is binding on them. Okay. So this is the Group of Companies Doctrine. Now, what is the problem with this doctrine? The problem is that it raises concerns about potential limitations on the principle of party autonomy and the ability of non-signatory companies to freely choose their dispute resolution forum. Which means what? That obviously their autonomy is hindered at, right? Even though they have not signed, they are being held accountable. And you will also find that each of them will have a particular appellate board or a particular forum for, approaching and grievance redressal, right? Now that also is getting infringed on. So thus you find that the number 2 is to do with the dispute resolution forums. These are the two criticisms you can understand of the group of companies doctrine. Okay, easy question, right? If you have any particular doubts related to what we discussed here today, you go ahead and connect with me on my Instagram channel. I'll be more than happy to clarify it for you. Okay, let's look at this dispute very quickly now. The essay keyboard dispute and India. It has been in the news, my friends. Disputes, you will see, if you have been going through your PYQs, you will see UPSC frequently asks questions on disputes or areas that are in the news. And thus, essay keyboard dispute becomes a very key important area for us. But more importantly, from the Indian perspective, India's particular, say, interest in Guyana has to be first understood so that you can go ahead and understand the expanse of the problem. Okay, so let's go ahead and understand Essequibo dispute first. Guyana, an Indian partner, it is clashing with Venezuela for the control of the oil-rich territory of Essequibo. So this is the area. Now this is under Guyanese control right now. Okay, but you find that Venezuela is interested in this area. Why is Venezuela interested? Obviously, we know it. Oil. Okay, you had an American company that chanced upon huge reserves of oil. Okay, so much so that Guyana is considered to be now the 17th, the potential is the 17th largest oil reserves. So suddenly Guyana is in the limelight and suddenly Venezuela also has interest in this area. Okay, but what are the backings of this interest? Okay, so you find that this particular area, when you go ahead and study Guyana, guys, okay, let's start it that way. It'll be interesting then. When you study Guyana, okay, now this term, if you open your maps, you will find that there is one Guyana, then there is one French Guyana. So when you go back in history, you find that Guyana was essentially part of several kingdoms, several agencies across the ages. Different areas were under parts of different, say, kingdoms. Okay, so you have the British Guyana, you have the Spanish Guyana, you have the Dutch Guyana, which is today's Suriname. Okay, then you have the, say, Venezuelan Guyana. You also have one that is in Brazil. So let's go ahead and note down each of them because that is important. Huh? It's a simple mapping question, but therein lies a very good mapping question, I'm pretty sure. Jagbandhu, how are you? Good morning, good morning. Oh, good to see you guys. Okay, let's look at it. So when we go ahead and discuss Guyana, how many of types were there? Okay, so you are looking at, say, the Spanish Guyana first, number 1. Or let me just add another slide, wait. Let me just add another slide, it'll be better. Great. Okay, so let's look at it. How many types, how many sub-regions of Guyana were there? So first you had the Spanish Guyana. Okay. Then you had the British Guyana. Okay. You have the French Guyana today. It's one of France's several overseas territories. By the way, France has the highest number of time zones in the world, in case you're not aware. And that is primarily to do with the fact that they are overseas territory. They are across continents from Eastern Hemisphere to Western Hemisphere everywhere. Okay. Then you have the Portuguese Guyana. Spanish, British, French, and then you have the Dutch Guyana. Great. All covered. Okay. So now where are each of them today? Let's go ahead and write them down too. So Spanish Guyana is essentially the region that you're looking at that is of area of interest to us. It is in Venezuela. Considered to be in Venezuela, the area that we're considering right now. Okay. British Guyana, where could it be, my friends? British Guyana is present day Guyana, in fact. Okay. The French Guyana is, well, today is French Guyana. Nothing has changed for them. Okay. The Portuguese Guyana is found in Brazil now. Okay. It goes by a special name. Can anyone tell me the name? Huh? It goes by the name of Amapa in Brazil. Okay. And Dutch Guyana is present day Suriname. Another very key Indian ally in the Southern American continent. Huh? There, the President Chandrika Prasad Santokhi was recently in India. Correct. So these are the say 5 Guyanas that we have looked at over the years. Different kingdoms have gone ahead and say exploited this area for their own benefits. Now coming back to the discussion. So you find that this entire Essequibo area, they control that this was administered by the Spain during the colonial era. This is what they are saying, that this was part of the Spanish Guyana. Now this matter is under ICJ. Meanwhile, Venezuela had a referendum primarily because Nicolas Maduro's election rating was going down. Okay. So he held a referendum on 3 particular counts. Number 1, that should we go ahead and take any step. Number 2, should we stop the water? And number 3, what should be done? Okay. And then what was realized was 95% of Venezuela supports his action. He stirred up nationalism in the name of, well, energy exploration and domination in that particular area. Now let's go forward and understand what are India's interests. Now that you know what is Guyana all about, what are India's interests then? First things first, energy. Like I told you, it's the world's newest oil power. It has already got the 17th largest reserves. And it is expected by 2030, it will be producing 1 million barrels per day. So straight away, global focus, global energy is towards, global attention is towards Guyana. And now India has a bigger role to play here. Why? Because of the practice of the Girmitias. We sent a lot of people from India. Not sent, they were obviously conned and taken. But then they have gone ahead to say different continents, primarily in that particular area. And now over the ages, they have become an invaluable part of the society there. They have contributed a lot there. And the present administration of Guyana, you'll find is of Indian inheritance. Right? So this people to people connect is also another area of interest why India should be completely interested there. More importantly, what you recently find is that India's outreach towards its diaspora is on the rise. Right? So this makes India's presence or involvement in this dispute much more likely. Because eventually, if you have people of Indian heritage who are going to be threatened in the name of nationalism by another country, India will have to step in either diplomatically or in other forums. And thus, India has a vital role to play here. And thirdly, you find that, well, when you discuss Indian diplomacy's engagement across different continents, you will find that we are behind the arc when it comes to South America. So, for example, you have the lithium triangle there, and you all have read that Chinese companies have gone ahead and say engaged in mining leases and control of that particular area. Why has that happened? Because China has gone ahead and engaged with each continent based on the merits and the demerits that they observe. And that is largely to do with the funds that it goes and puts in its foreign service, whereas India does not do that. But this could be a very key moment for India to go ahead and leverage this crisis, use this crisis as an entry point to make sure that it plays a larger role in the greater good of that particular area. When you realize that you're looking at South America, it does face some key problems, right? For example, the extraction of Amazon. You had the Amazon summit recently, right? To the Amazon forests. Now they are of global importance, which means India also will have to play a role, at least voicing an opinion regarding Amazon forests. You're looking at the lithium triangle, right? You're looking at the Panama Canal crisis that is now developing, right? And now you have this particular Essequibo dispute. So because the Southern American continent does have the issues of global importance, it cannot escape the attention by global players. And thus India needs to have a proactive role. And this could be a key moment for India to go ahead, given that it is, again, largely looking to protect the people of its own heritage. Right? Okay, answer this question for me, my friends, very quickly. Morning, Dilshad. Jagbandhu, thank you. You're very kind. Dilshad, these are the types of questions that you can expect. Go ahead and answer this for me, Dilshad. Spanish Guyana, Venezuela, British Guyana, just Guyana, Dutch Guyana, Suriname, Portuguese Guyana, Brazil. You will let me know which are correctly matched. Meanwhile, the mains results were announced yesterday. Okay. Uh, I have posted on my Telegram channel regarding what my observations on the mains results are. I have not yet said anything. We'll discuss detail later. But for the time being, those of you who have cleared, you do not have a moment to lose. You should not be going and waiting for anything to happen. Make things happen. Go ahead and start investing in yourself, because eventually the interview tests your opinion, your public communication skills, your presence, your clarity of mind, and they need to be developed. It's not something that is innately available to an individual. And which is why I suggest that go ahead and connect with the interview guidance program being offered by StudyIQ, being led by Shri Anil Swarup, the former secretary to the government of India. The interview panel also has luminaries from the Indian Administrative Service, the Police Service, the Forest Service, the Foreign Service. And I would suggest that you go ahead and quickly enroll yourself, give yourself that extra advantage of preparation, of analysis, and more importantly, feedback, which you can take back every day as you focus on your interview date, right? And so my best wishes for those of you who have cleared mains. Many of you go ahead and associate with this program, because I can assure you it will have immense benefit to you, right? So this is the registration link. You will find it on the on the particular website, or you can go ahead and send your DAF, your DAF, to your IGP 2023 at studyiq.com, right? I hope many of you go ahead and engage with this. This is a fantastic opportunity to prepare in the best manner for your interview. Right, let's look at the questions of yesterday, my friends. It is a genetic blood disorder that affects the patient's hemoglobin, the protein that carries oxygen throughout the body. So here is the keyword: blood disorder, sickle cell disorder. The rest have nothing to do with blood per se. Okay, white economy, silver economy, gray economy, red economy. Which of these may be detrimental to the realization of the Agenda 2030? So we discussed white economy is to do with the healthcare. Silver economy is to do with 50 plus individuals. Okay. Gray economy is to do with the unregulated sector, the legal but unregulated. And red economy is to do with, well, unsustainable. It's to do with unsustainability. You go ahead and extract as much as you can, right? Now, if these don't make sense to you at all, if you're looking at this for the first time, may I please ask you and request you to look at yesterday's class, or you can go ahead and access the PDF of it from my Telegram channel. You should be aware of what these terms mean. What does golden economy mean? What is a black economy? Right. So the detrimental ones here, which means the ones that would have affected my Agenda 2030, SDG 2030 in a negative manner, are 3 and 4. So the answer here being D. Right? Ulfat, Kanansai, Niraja, Studying Raccoon, Sonu, Trupti, Harshit, Shubham, Anurag, Jagbandhu, Akhil, Pooja, Koda, User, Ayush, Aditya, Akshay, and Gatso. Well done, guys. Excellent job. I see most of you have got both the questions correct. Again, attempt today's question also. And to the rest of you, do think about how we go ahead and understand topics here. Okay? The focus has to be a knowledge. Knowledge has to be gained first, and then it has to be applied. Right? So please consider answering the questions that I have put forth to you today, and we'll discuss the correct answers in tomorrow's class. Meanwhile, you can go ahead and access the entire lecture, the PDF of this entire lecture, on my Telegram channel that I will upload at around 12 noon. Ideally, should just be noon. 12 noon to bolte nahi hai. Okay. On that note, it's a wrap, my friends. Once again, I'll request you to leave me a like if you understood the topics and you enjoyed the lecture. I'll see you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Have a productive day. Bye.